Peace. Good morning, family. How you doing? It's Mr. R2 here at Consistency is Currency, your morning podcast of choice. Um, that's not just a saying. It is a saying, but it's not. Uh, it's not to me, and it's definitely not to you, to those who actually come here and to listen and to partake in the things that are said in the mornings. And it's real true and it's honest uh, as well. So I ain't even put the caption up there. Let me put the caption. So those that are watching right now who have already tuned in, my word to you is good morning. So again, if I can say good morning to you, then you can actually say good morning back because I want you to have a great day. And I wanted to start now. I wanted to start today. I wanted to start in this moment because everyone has the opportunity to have a great day. But it's in that moment that you decide to change how you feel is the beginning of you having a great day because you've changed the mindset that you have. You changed the feelings that you're having right now. You've changed in that moment, which what we're going to be talking about today, which is I surrender. So if you understand the process of surrendering, don't mind me right now, I got to change the caption. If you understand the process of surrendering, what I want you to do actually right now is to say that, to say I surrender, right? Say I surrender. Um, because it's going to help. You know what? I'm gonna change the caption. I want to ask the question: have you surrendered? How about that? I'm gonna put that in there. Have you surrendered? And that's an honest question, right? It's an honest question because I only want people that is willing to answer that question from an honest perspective, who is really going to get that question right, who is really going to answer that question honestly. Because that's a transparent question that propose a transparent answer. If the answer is not answered correctly, then you're always going to bump heads with yourself and you're always going to bump heads with the process because you have yet to lay in the bosom of surrendering. So I'm not going to be on long because I just want to drop this jewel. Because for me, I'm gonna tell you something. Peace. Good morning, Miss Anderson. Good morning, Mr. Davis. We got a newcomer. Good morning, Latricia. Um, so surrendering was yesterday. Yesterday, like in the evening, the words "I surrender" just kept repeating inside of my head because that's like where I am right now in the moment. Me personally. Um, and with the new things that I'm learning, with the new direction that I'm going, there's a process of surrendering that needs to take place if I'm ever going to open myself to the opportunity of what new looks like and what the direction looks like. I have I, I'm just at that moment of surrendering. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Again, don't want to be on long. So again, for those that are right now inside the chat, those that are viewing, like always, I want to say I thank you and I want to say I appreciate you for just being here. I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate you for answering the call. I appreciate you for just being honest and just being transparent in this moment. So everything that you hear, if there's something that resonates with you right now or something that resonates with you as we communicate, again, this is not me talking at you. This is me talking openly. You're just in this digital space where you can hear me. Peace. Good morning, Miss Scott. Where you can hear me open. So now let's begin that process of I surrender. And everybody that's listening in the podcast space, whether it's iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, what's the other one? Podbean. So I thank you and I appreciate you for listening. So let's go ahead and jump because today is going to be deep. And today, if you're not ready for this, you're going to get ready after you listen to this. Because this is a true process by only those who understand the true nature of what surrendering is and what it's not. So let's go ahead and jump. So for those who may be new to the platform, you're going to get definitions of the words. You're going to get the etymology of the words. I'm going to give you focus, where I'm going to say red over white or white over red. If I say white over red, that means focus on the words that you see that are in white. And if you're listening to this on the podcast space, you're not seeing the true visuals of it. So if you're listening to it, you want to see what I'm talking about, go ahead and go to the YouTube channel, Consistency is Currency, and you're able to see like they see when I say red over white or white over red. So let's go ahead and read the definition of surrender, which is cease resistance to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. Cease resistance to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. So the inversion on this is red over white, which is cease resistance to an authority. So what are you talking about, Mr. R2? Cease resistance to an authority. Fear is an authority. Success is an authority. The process is an authority. Love is an authority. Listening is an authority. Health is an authority. Cease resistance to an authority. That's something that really comes in that honest space of surrendering. I surrender constantly. I surrender constantly because I understand what the authority is, because I understand what my assignment is. I understand, getting up and coming here and being consistent is an authority. So I have to cease resistance. I have to cease not waking up. I have to cease hitting the snooze button, or to not get up and to do what I know that is required, or to do what I know what is the calling to do. So I have to cease the resistance and submit to the authority. I'm just giving you definitions. You can read it for yourself. Again, the first definition of surrender is cease resistance to an enemy or opponent and submit to their authority. And the inversion is red over white. Cease resistance to an authority. What is your authority? That's up to you. So whatever you feel your authority is, put that inside the chat. Say that. Say what that authority is. If it's your family, cool. If it's whatever it is, cool. Be open and transparent enough to say that, because a lot of times, until we are transparent in that moment to understand what we're saying in that moment, then we can submit to it because we understand the nature of it. So I'm going to ask you right now, take this live, share it in the Facebook group, or take this live, or do both. Take this live and share it on your news feed, because right now we have too many people that haven't understood or don't understand the nature of surrendering, or the power of surrendering, or even the nature of authority. So let's go with the second definition. The second definition says abandon oneself entirely to give in to. So I think we can kind of flip this both ways, but the first inversion that I want you to pay attention to is abandonment. Well, let me take that back. The first inversion I want you to pay attention to is the white over red, right? Abandon oneself entirely. Because if you're ever going to submit to the process, you're going to have to abandon yourself entirely. Because if it's like, how long are you going to continue to sabotage your own future? How long are you going to continue to sabotage your levels of success? How long are you going to continue to sabotage your your life? How long are you going to continue to sabotage the love? How long are you going to continue to sabotage that? Because you're going to have to abandon it entirely if something is going to change inside of you. Again, I'm just giving you the word and the definitions of the word. But when you say I surrender, that means you're saying I submit to the authority. You're it's a personal approach. It's not something that you're pointing the finger at somebody and saying, this is your fault. This is something that you did. But it is something that you abandon oneself, that it is a self-commitment. It is a self-direction. It is a self-realization that in order for me to get to where I ultimately want to go to, I have to abandon my own fear. I have to abandon entirely in order for me to reach that goal. So now let's look at it from this perspective too. Let's look at a mountaintop, right? Imagine a mountaintop. You can see the mountaintop. Right now, you are a mountain climber. You're at the bottom of the mountaintop. You can look up and you can see what it looks like. You got your shoes, you got your backpack, you got stuff in the backpack, you got all the tools that you need. You have water, you have food, you have snacks, you have a first aid kit, whatever. You got a towel, you got to change a shirt, you change the socks if need be. You have all the stuff that you feel that is needed in order for you to ascend up to this mountain, in order for you to get to the top. So what happened? You've already abandoned in process. Why? Because you wouldn't have packed your bag if you didn't abandon or surrender to, if I'm going to get up there, I may possibly need these things. So I'm going to surrender and I'm going to pack this bag. But in order for me to begin to ascend up the mountain, I have to surrender to the process. I have to surrender to the process, because if I'm ever going to get to the top of the mountain, first, I must surrender the thought that I can't do it. I must yield to the process that if it's ever going to take place, I have to surrender to it, and I have to get myself together, because I got the bag together. Now I have to submit to the process of surrender, that I have to take this first step. I surrender to the first step. Like we spoke about yesterday. If you wasn't here yesterday, if you didn't listen to take the first step yesterday, it's up inside of the content. Click on that and listen to it, and you can understand where I surrender came from, where the process came from. I've surrendered to the first step. Just like MLK said, faith is taking a step without, what do you say? Faith is taking a step knowing, like something like faith is like taking a step knowing that the staircase is there, or not worrying about the staircase, or something like that. If you know the quote, go ahead and put it inside the chat. But I've surrendered to the staircase. Have you surrendered to the staircase? Because you've already taken the first step. You've committed to the first step. Now it's time for you to take the second step, because you totally abandoned your sabotaging thoughts. So let's go with the second definition. Well, the etymology. So now let's go to the etymology of surrender. So it says etymology of surrender is an old French sender, whatever it is. If French was your thing, cool. It's not mine. Right? So old French, the etymology of surrender is coming back to the origin of the old French, which is surrender, which is give up or deliver over. Give up or deliver over. So now it begins to break down surrender. So you have the SUR, which is an Anglo-French, which is over, above, beyond, and in addition. Sometimes when you begin the process of surrendering, you may go over what you normally think about your processing. Like, you know what? If I'm ever going to get over this, I must change the way that I think. I surrender my thoughts in order for me to get through this journey. I need to go above, just like when you hear people say rise above average, that means I surrendered to the pain of working out, and I'm going to go above my average distance. Like when they say, I'm gonna run an extra mile today. That means you're going above what you normally do. So you've surrendered to your normal limit that you put on yourself. Now my goal is to surrender to that 2 miles and run 3. Again, I'm just giving you the etymology and the origin and where it came from, but I'm putting it into practical sense. So now you can say, I surrender. And to go beyond and in addition to. That's the SIR part, the Anglo-French part of surrender. So now, let's go to, now it's supposed to have been switched to render. So don't look at the red SUR. Imagine, just look at the white, which is the render, RENDER. My mistake. Hey, if you listen on the podcast, you want to see the mistake, cool, go to the YouTube and you can watch it yourself. All right, so now the render part, it is said that is vulgar Latin. I don't know what vulgar Latin is. I don't know how vulgar it is, but whatever, right? So the vulgar Latin, which is render, which is give back, return, restore. So now let's look at it from this perspective. So you've surrendered to the time, right? If it's going to take you 2 hours to do this, I've surrendered to knowing that it's going to take me 2 hours to complete this task. I surrender to it. I surrender to the notion of the 2 hours. But because I've surrendered to it and now I'm focused on this task that I'm doing, it might not take you 2 hours, but you've already submitted or you've already surrendered to the time of 2 hours. And now by the time you get finished with the task that you had at hand, you be like, oh man, it didn't really take me 2 hours. So now I can give that back to somebody else. Like, look, hey, it's going to take about 2 hours to do it. Don't worry about the time. Just go ahead and knock this out. So now you can give that back to someone who was already, who may have been or who may be afraid of starting. That's that Sankofa, right? You can reach back and bring somebody else forward. That's because you've already been through it. Now you can restore your faith because you was afraid to start to begin with. You was afraid to put yourself in that space because you surrendered to the fear, and now you understood that the fear is no longer fear no more. My fear has transitioned into faith. My fear has transitioned into power. My fear has transitioned to me to surrender to it, acknowledge that I am no longer afraid of it. So now I have to restore my thoughts because now I know how to do it. Because after I have surrendered to the process of me thinking that I can't do it, or I was afraid to start, I've surrendered to it. So now I can do it again. I can return at that moment and do it again. Because I now understand the power of surrender. I now understand the power of what happens when I know what self-sabotage look like. I can identify it before it takes place because I know what the feeling feels like. I know what that feeling of anxiety feels like. So I surrender to the moment of anxiety because now I acknowledge what it feels like and I can change it because I know what it is. I've surrendered to it before. Because you have people that say, don't give in to the anxiety. Nah, surrender to that thing. Surrender to the anxiety. And now do something about it because you know what it feels like. Do something about it because you know what you can do because you've been there before. So just say, I surrender. I surrender. So let's take this quick deep dive, right? Yeah, I know you may say surrender sounds lame. That's not my thing. That's not who I am. Surrendering is for the meek. Surrendering is weak. A lot of people think that way. I don't care what you think about it until you try it. You know, perhaps you may be scared to do it because you feel that you want to constantly control everything. Something might not even be in your control because that thing you cannot control, you will not control. You surrender to it, you look at it for what it is, and you move on. That's still a nature of surrendering, acknowledging that it took place, acknowledging that it's taking place. Take those lessons and transition into blessings. Take the obstacles and transition into opportunity. That is surrendering to the obstacle and taking the obstacle, because the transition part only happens only after you have surrendered to it. And after the surrendering takes place, that's when you turn it into an opportunity. Whether it is a learning opportunity or a success opportunity, whatever it is, the process had to be surrendered to and you had to do it. Yes, you don't like it. I'm sure that you don't like it. No one likes the pain. But if the pain has an opportunity to become the beginning of your purpose, go through that thing. Because it's going to build the you that you are. Because surrendering means you are relaxed enough to be able to shift the landscape, or surrendering enough to acknowledge that a course correction has to take place. That's the surrender. That's that moment. That's that perfect peace. That's the acknowledgement. That's the walking it out. I'm not afraid to walk towards it, but I'm all for walking with it and then walking past it, because I understood the process of surrender. So, have you surrendered? Stop saying what you want if you're not willing to submit to what you need. Stop saying I want to go in this direction if you're not willing to submit to the process. Stop saying how much you don't have if you're not willing to submit to look at what you do have. Too many times we put ourselves in spaces to where we're worried about what somebody might say, but submit to what you say, right? Submit to what you already have. Submit to what you've already accomplished. Submit to the goals that you have set for you. Submit to the steps that you're going to need to take in order for you to get there. So now when you get to somewhere and you hit that wall and you understand that pain and that pain point, you're like, you know what, man, I surrender to it. Now I know what it looks like. I know what that wall feels like. I can identify that wall. That wall is true. I can stand in front of door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. I have to submit to the door, because in order for me to get to it, I have to surrender that I have to go through one of these doors. So now when I go through door number 1 and there's a lion in there, then I say, you know what? Hey, don't go through door number 1. I've already submitted to it. I know what it feels like, and I got toe up when I went through that door. But I'm still submitting to completing the mission. I'm still submitted to the calling. I'm still submitted to the vision. So if I'm still submitting to it and committed to it, I still have to go through door number 2 and door number 3, because I'm committed. A level of commitment has a level of submission. All right, that's enough. But hey, man, y'all be blessed. I'll see you tomorrow right here at Consistency is Currency, your morning podcast of choice. Don't be afraid to submit. You just might learn something about who you are, about how much you can endure, how much you can take, how much weight you can carry, and what success really looks like, feels like, tastes like, smells like. Whatever it is, there is a level of submission that you have to do. There is a level of surrendering that you have to go through before you even get there. And if today's your day to surrender, just say, I surrender. All right, that's enough. Hey, I see you tomorrow right here at 7:30 at Consistency is Currency, your morning podcast of choice. Y'all be blessed. Peace.